Welcome back, my environmental scientists. I hope you enjoyed the long weekend. Since you've slept since our last science lesson, let's review what we did last week. What do you remember about last week's science assignments? On Tuesday of last week, we learned that real scientists use science notebooks, and we set up our own science notebooks. On Thursday, we observed mealworms and learned about environments and their environmental factors when we read about two very different terrestrial environments. Do you remember which two environments we read about? We read about tropical rainforests and deserts. Remember that environments are made up of living and non-living factors. Fourth grade, you all gave great examples of living and non-living environmental factors. Living factors are all the plants and animals that live and thrive in a place. Frogs, sloths, the canopy, and birds are some of the examples you guys gave of living factors in the tropical rainforest. Lizards, cacti, spiders, bighorn sheep, and desert tortoises are also great examples of living factors in the desert. The non-living parts of an environment are temperature, rainfall, the amount of sunlight, and soil type. It rains a lot in the tropical rainforest. But even though it gets a lot of water, the soil is not very fertile, meaning it's not a good place to grow your favorite fruits or vegetables. Non-living factors in the desert are the very small amount of rain, high temperatures, sand, and rocks. After we make some more observations on our mealworm, we will be learning about how to create our own miniature environment, known as a terrarium. Last week's Google form asked you to make a prediction for which environment mealworms will prefer. Nearly 81% of Humphreys West fourth graders predicted that mealworms will prefer an environment at room temperature. And about 19% of fourth graders predicted that mealworms will prefer an environment at refrigerator temperature. So here's our key. Blue at room temperature, about 22 degrees Celsius, or are they going to like the cold at refrigerator temperature, about 5 degrees Celsius? Well, let's see what happens. The mealworms in the cold environment did not molt. It's a new vocabulary word. I wonder what that means. The mealworms in the cold environment also did not pupate. Ooh, wonder what that means. Two new vocabulary words. We're going to go over that. So, mealworms in the cold environments did not molt. Molting means to shed an outer layer before getting a new covering of skin, hair, or even a shell. What animals do you know that molt? Many insects, snakes, and lizards shed their outermost layer, or molt. Even some mammals, such as the desert bighorn sheep, molts by shedding its fur, wool, or hair, depending on the time of year. The mealworms in the cold environment also did not pupate. To pupate means to change from a mealworm larva to a pupa. Mealworms normally pupate in 2 to 3 weeks. During winter or cold weather, it can take up to 9 months for mealworms to pupate. So we're using a lot of these words that you may or may not be familiar with. Molt. Well, that means to get rid of the outermost layer. Okay, we know that now. Larva. What's a larva? And pupate, when it changes from a larva to a pupa? It's okay if you don't know those words. We're going to continue observing our mealworm and reinforcing some of these vocabulary terms that are a part of the mealworm's life cycle. Some of you might have gone over this in second grade. Some of you may not. It's okay. We're going to review. So mealworm larva to pupa. Mealworms go through different stages during their life cycle. The name for this life stage is the larva. So see, this looks familiar. You do know what a larva is. It's what we've been observing so far. When the mealworm larva needs to grow, it first sheds its outer skin. This is called molting. And sorry to that 19%, but the mealworms did not prefer the cold temperature, just like me. I don't like the cold either. None of the mealworms in the colder environment molted. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they didn't shed their skin? Great question. Mealworms go through different stages during their life cycle. The name for this life stage is the larva. Whoa, where did that come from? That was not supposed to happen. Okay, all right, okay. There we go. That's better. That's what a larva looks like. When the mealworm larva needs to grow, it first sheds its outer skin. This is called molting. Mealworms must molt in order to grow. The old skin, which is also called a mold, is left behind. Now we're going to observe the pupa. Whenever there are multiple pupa, we call it pupae. Pay attention to its change in color. Look at its change in color. Do you notice its movements? All right. Why do you think the mealworm turned white? Why do you think the mealworms shed their skin? Did you notice that our larva, after it pupates and becomes a pupa, has changed color? It's only got the inside now. There's no outside anymore. So go ahead and pause the video so you can write down these questions and answer them in page 7 of your science notebook. Remember, there are no wrong answers. When we watched What Real Scientists from Our Notable Notebooks book we read last week, we saw that real scientists just put their thoughts and predictions in their notebooks. Sometimes they don't even write in complete sentences. It's okay. Go ahead and pause the video on page 7 of your science notebook. Go ahead and write down and answer these questions. Press play when you have completed answering these questions. Now it's time for the fun part. Well, the even more fun part. This week, you will be creating small environments known as a terrarium. Please read pages 13 through 15 in your FOSS-Web ebook. Watch the Access FOSS-Web ebook video for instructions on how to access your ebook. Happy reading!